We're all trying to navigate our way through the coronavirus pandemic, and it doesn't help when there are different rules for different people. Tonight, a glaring loophole that makes a mockery of the tight restrictions on overseas airline arrivals. International workers from COVID-19 hotspots free to roam our streets and shopping centres without any medical checks or quarantine.
If this is as bad as everyone is saying it is, there should be some sort of quarantine.
Yeah. I don't think it's fair when everyone else is getting checked.
Fears of an airborne disease on a nautical passage.
They should have been tested and cleared before landing.
Bulk carrier crew members sailing here direct from virus-hit China and South Korea, roaming free in Australian shops. Oh, where are you going?
I'm going to go for work.
Are you going to work?
Yeah.
Back to the ship?
Yeah.
No official medical checks, just a captain's call that the crew's coronavirus free.
The crew might be a reservoir of ongoing infection.
And to gamble, the 2-week virus incubation period is spot on.
Well, there's reports of even out to 28 days.
Now, as community concerns surface over visiting ships,
there's no point just doing the airports and not doing the seaports. So
we investigate claims that not enough's being done to shore up our borders.
People are right to raise valid concerns, and it really does fall to the authorities to hear those concerns very early on.
If banning direct flights from China has hit our economy hard, then suspending all sea voyages would cripple it.
You can't get fuel any other way. You can't get goods here any other way. You can't get our coal, our iron ore, our resources out of the country unless it's in a ship. We need to keep those lines open.
The daily global shipping activity shows just how incredibly busy the waters are. And it's here on the northwestern tip of Australia where our story begins. Karratha is a mining town of 23,000 people and a mega export hub for our natural resources. As of last week, the ports here were operating at security level 1, the lowest threat level. While bulk carriers from coronavirus-hit China and South Korea are loaded with iron ore, coal and gas, crew from those ships are free to travel into town and load up their trolleys at the local shops. Lots of water?
Yeah.
Lots of water, yeah.
Who's doing the checks? You know, we've got these wonderful TV shows about border control, but this is who's doing the checks here.
A Current Affair was contacted by an employee of one of the major resource companies in the Pilbara. He wants to keep his identity secret because he's blowing the whistle on the free flow of ship crews into town.
There is no third party, Ports Authority, WA Government, quarantine involved checking these crews as they come ashore. It's up to the ship's captain to make the call that they are well, they come straight ashore and drive to the shops. Zero checks at our site.
Hello, mate. Visiting crew members weren't giving much away. Hey, can I ask you a question? Yo, Australian TV? Australian TV?
I cannot speak English.
For locals, knowing they could be bumping into someone at the checkout who hasn't had a thorough medical before stepping off the boat has got them spooked. Do you think that ship workers should be health checked before they jump on a bus and come into Karratha?
100% they should. There probably should be checks put in place for some people coming from overseas, whether they're Chinese or Australian. It shouldn't matter who they are.
Australia's Mission to Seafarers organisation ferries foreign crew members from ports to shopping centres around the country. One volunteer driver told A Current Affair drivers have been told to stay 1 metre apart from ship crews and to report any signs of fever. He also said several of his elderly colleagues have quit driving amid the virus threat. Ports Australia CEO Mike Gallagher says ship captains and companies are on notice to be upfront about the health of their crew on arrival.
There's no room for negotiation on it. They also know the significant penalties that exist for shipping lines that don't do the right thing, running into many hundreds of thousands of dollars.
In a statement, Border Force Australia told A Current Affair that ships from China, South Korea and Iran
will be subject to additional reporting requirements and restrictions on crew disembarking the vessel.
We can also reveal Aussie pilots are being relied upon to detect unwell crew members before piloting the ship into port.
We are trying to ensure that we are protecting the Australian population from there being any weak breaks or links in the supply chain coming into the country.
Ideally, you'd have someone who was qualified in public health screening to be doing that job.
Kirby Institute Head of Biosecurity Professor Raina McIntyre warns we should not underestimate the virus threat from shipping.
When you've got people who've been on ships for weeks, for example, there is a risk of infection being present.
Despite the government rolling out the extra measures last month, our Karratha mining source claims nothing's changed at his port.
Absolutely agree, it's all up to a captain's call. We have seen no extra border force or quarantine involvement on our wharfs. It is business as usual out here. Crews come and go as they please, as long as the captain deems them well.
Karratha has one of the largest fly-in, fly-out workforces in the country. The movement of workers could give the virus a ticket to every corner of Australia when unsuspecting miners return home. Professor McIntyre says it is possible Pilbara miners could have already contracted the virus without even knowing it.
A small mining town which is full of younger people basically working in the mines, they're less likely to get severe disease. So if there had been some infection there, people might have just thought they had the common cold, got over it, and you wouldn't know. So until we have a blood test that can see whether people were exposed to the virus, we won't really know.
Bulk carriers take between 9 and 14 days to reach Australia from mainland China and South Korea. Now, at ports around the country, international ships can't dock unless they've spent 14 days at sea, the globally accepted maximum incubation period of the virus.
We can't expect zero spread. That is probably not practical.
Infectious disease physician Peter Collignon says we have to trust the 2-week stand down, despite some people showing symptoms after nearly a month.
But by the same token, it still means that the vast majority of cases, 99%, are well and truly less than 14 days.
Karratha locals are worried about the 1%ers sneaking through the net.
Everyone should be being checked, including me. If I was going overseas to another country, I would be put my hand up and say, yeah, check me.
I can understand their panic on that sort of situation. There definitely has to be some sort of quarantine.
Professor Raina McIntyre highlights another frightening development.
The problem is we're increasingly becoming aware of asymptomatic transmission, which is people who become infected but do not have symptoms. And whether they go on to be transmitting virus after the quarantine period is the question.
With our entire economy and public health at stake, perhaps the best solution is to bar crews from high-risk countries coming ashore.
If we completely close down the country so there's no shipping, no air or anything, vital products such as drugs that we need, we won't get. And that actually means you'll cause more death by completely restricting trade and movement of people than from the virus itself.
Karratha might have a flash-looking health campus, but a GP shortage has seen wait times climb to 11 days, and that's no good for anyone.
No, I'd rather not be there though. So if I have to be in lockdown, I've got enough toilet paper, we're all good. All right, thanks.
Late today, the Australian Border Force told us that if a foreign crew member now needs to come ashore before the 14-day self-isolation period has finished, they must wear personal protective equipment.